January 26, 1945. The frozen fields outside Holtzwihr, France. The air is so cold it burns the lungs. Snow crunches under heavy boots as smoke drifts low across the white farmland. Somewhere beyond the tree line, German machine guns chatter in sharp, disciplined bursts. The sound rolls across the open ground like tearing fabric. And in the middle of it all stands a 19-year-old staff sergeant, thin, sharp-eyed, and already exhausted beyond his years. Audie Murphy doesn't look like the kind of man armies fear. Barely 5'5", face still boyish beneath the grime. But the men around him, what's left of them, keep glancing his way, because they know what's coming. Moments earlier, the German counterattack began. It started with the distant growl of engines. Then the trees ahead erupted. Enemy infantry spilled forward in waves, dark figures moving fast through the snow, supported by armored vehicles grinding through the frozen earth. The 3rd Infantry Division had been pushing hard through Alsace, but now the Germans were pushing back with everything they had left. Murphy's company is already shattered. Of the original force, many are wounded, some are dead. The rest are dangerously exposed along the edge of the Riedwehr woods. Their tank destroyers burn behind them, sending thick columns of black smoke into the gray winter sky. The order comes down the line: fall back to the woods. Murphy doesn't hesitate. "Fall back to the woods," he shouts, his Texas drawl cutting clean through the chaos. Men begin peeling away, dragging the wounded, slipping on the ice, breath fogging in panicked bursts. But Murphy doesn't move with them. He stays, because someone has to hold the line. Ahead, the German assault force is growing clearer through the drifting smoke. Dozens of infantry spreading out, rifles ready, machine gunners setting up in the snow. They believe the Americans are collapsing. They believe the position is theirs. They're wrong. Murphy turns and climbs onto the smoking wreck of a burning tank destroyer, an M10 that's already been hit and abandoned. Flames lick from the engine compartment. Ammunition inside pops and snaps in the heat. It is, by every measure, a death trap. Murphy knows it. But from up there, he can see everything. He grabs the mounted .50 caliber machine gun. The metal is freezing cold, even through his gloves. Below him, the last of his men disappear into the tree line. He is now alone, one American soldier standing in the open against an entire advancing force. The 1st German squad breaks from cover. Murphy squeezes the trigger. The .50 caliber erupts with a thunderous roar. The heavy machine gun bucks violently as bright tracers rip across the snowfield. The leading German soldiers dive for cover, some dropping mid-stride, their formation instantly shattered. Murphy adjusts his aim with calm precision. Short bursts, controlled, professional. Years of combat packed into seconds. More Germans appear, far more than expected. They spread wider now, trying to flank, their officers shouting sharp commands in German. From Murphy's vantage point, it's painfully clear. They've sent a kill force, roughly 50 men, maybe more, all converging on one position, on him. Bullets begin snapping past the tank destroyer. Machine gun fire chews into the metal hull. Sparks jump inches from Murphy's face. The burning vehicle beneath him groans as flames spread closer to the ammunition racks. Any second, it could explode. Murphy doesn't climb down. Instead, he leans harder into the weapon. The .50 caliber hammers again. Another squad goes to ground. Snow kicks up in violent sprays where the heavy rounds land. German soldiers begin dropping behind tree stumps and shallow depressions, suddenly cautious. This isn't the easy overrun they expected. From the woods behind Murphy, American artillery radios crackle to life. Murphy grabs the field phone. His voice is steady, frighteningly steady for a man standing on a burning vehicle under direct fire. He begins calling in artillery, dangerously close to his own position, closer than doctrine allows, closer than survival recommends, because he knows something the Germans don't yet realize. If they break through here, his company dies. The machine gun continues to roar, and the lone American refuses to move. Across the frozen fields, German infantry are already adjusting. Their officers wave them forward in short, aggressive bounds, leapfrogging through the snow, using the burning tank destroyer as their focal point. They've seen him now. One American, exposed, alone. To them, this isn't a defensive line, it's a target. Murphy keeps the .50 caliber hammering in controlled bursts, forcing the nearest squads to keep their heads down. But even as he fires, he can see the problem unfolding in real time. They're spreading out, trying to encircle, trying to close the distance where the heavy machine gun loses its advantage. His breath fogs in sharp bursts. The flames beneath him grow hotter, licking higher along the engine deck. The metal under his boots is starting to radiate heat through the frozen air. Any moment, the ammunition inside the M10 could cook off. Any moment, he could disappear in a fireball. Still, he stays. "Rounds incoming," the artillery voice finally replies. Murphy lowers the field phone for half a second and scans the field. The Germans are closer now. Too close. "Closer," Murphy says again into the receiver, voice flat. "You're still short." There's a pause on the line, the kind that comes when trained professionals realize someone is asking them to do something very, very dangerous. But Murphy isn't guessing, he's calculating. If the shells land too far out, the Germans will push through. If they land too close, well, that's a risk he's already accepted. The first American artillery shells scream overhead. Then, whoomph! The frozen earth erupts just beyond the German advance. Snow and dirt geyser skyward. For a split second, the German line stalls. Murphy immediately capitalizes. The .50 caliber opens up again, tracers stitching across the disrupted formations. One machine gun team trying to set up in the open vanishes in a storm of heavy rounds. Another squad dives flat into the snow, momentum broken. But the Germans are disciplined, experienced. They don't retreat, they adapt. Officers begin pushing small assault groups forward, using the artillery blasts as partial cover, timing their movements between the impacts. Murphy can see what they're trying to do. Close the gap, piece by piece, until they're inside grenade range. He grips the phone tighter. "Adjust fire," he says calmly. "Drop it 50 yards closer." The reply comes back strained. "That's danger close." Murphy's eyes never leave the advancing figures. "I know exactly where it is." Another pause. Then the artillery shifts. The next salvo comes in lower, closer. The explosions now slam into the earth with bone-shaking violence. Shock waves ripple across the frozen field. German soldiers flatten instinctively, their advance stuttering again. But the enemy numbers are still overwhelming. Murphy can see at least 50, maybe more, filtering through the smoke and drifting snow, and they are not giving up. Machine gun fire suddenly ripped toward him from the right flank. The M10's hull rings like a giant bell as rounds smash into the metal. One bullet punches through the thin armor shield near the gun mount, spraying hot fragments across Murphy's sleeve. He flinches just once, then corrects his aim. The .50 caliber swings right, roars. The flanking German gun position disappears in a storm of heavy fire, the weapon tumbling sideways into the snow.
Murphy exhales slowly, but the heat beneath his boots is getting worse. Flames are now pushing out of the engine compartment in thick, hungry waves. Black smoke pours upward, partially blinding him. Inside the vehicle, something metallic pops loudly, ammunition beginning to react to the fire. Time is running out. Behind him, deep in the woods, his company waits, wounded, low on ammunition, completely dependent on the one man standing in the open. Murphy lifts the phone again. His voice is calm enough to be chilling. Bring it in even closer. The artillery officer on the line doesn't argue this time. Seconds later, the sky howls, and the next barrage begins to fall almost on top of Murphy's position. The battlefield disappears in fire and snow. But still, the lone American keeps firing.
The shockwave punches through the air and hits Murphy in the chest like a physical blow. Snow, dirt, and shattered ice blast skyward in a violent curtain. Even the German assault troops, hardened veterans of the Western Front, hesitate now. Because this is no longer normal artillery support. This is suicide range fire. Murphy steadies himself against the violent concussion and squeezes the trigger again. The .50 caliber thunders. Through the drifting smoke, he catches movement. A German squad trying to rush forward between impacts. They're low, fast, disciplined. Too slow. Murphy walks the tracers across them with surgical precision. One soldier spins and drops. Another collapses mid-stride. The rest dive hard into the snow, momentum shattered. Still, they keep coming. From the tree line to his left, more enemy infantry appear, spreading wide now, attempting to stretch his field of fire. Their officers have realized the truth. This defense hinges on one gun and one man. If they can overwhelm him, even for a moment, the American line behind the woods will fold. Murphy sees it too. His jaw tightens. He shifts the heavy weapon again, sweeping left. The barrel glows faintly now, heat shimmering in the freezing air. Spent casings pour down around a burning hull like metallic rain. Another burst, another group forced flat, another precious minute bought. But the Germans are closing the distance. 80 yards, 70. Some are now firing from the hip as they advance, bullets snapping past Murphy's ears, hammering the tank destroyer's thin armor. One round punches through the side panel and ricochets somewhere inside the burning vehicle with a sharp metallic scream. The M10 groans beneath him. Inside the hull, something cooks off with a sharp pop. Murphy doesn't look down. Instead, he grabs the field phone again. Adjust fire, danger close, 50 yards. The voice on the other end is tight. You're inside the safety margin. Murphy's eyes stay locked on the advancing line. Do it! There's no hesitation this time. Seconds later, the artillery arrives like the wrath of God. Shells slam into the field directly in front of Murphy's position. The explosions are so close that fragments hiss through the air around him. One jagged piece of shrapnel slices by his shoulder, missing by inches. The Germans finally falter. You can almost feel the momentum break. What was once a confident assault is now chaos. Soldiers diving for cover, formations shattered, officers screaming to regroup over the thunder of American artillery and the relentless hammer of the .50 caliber. Murphy presses the advantage mercilessly. Short bursts, controlled breathing, total focus. From the woods behind him, American observers watch in stunned silence. They can see the entire battlefield unfolding through the gaps in the trees, the burning tank destroyer, the curtain of artillery, and the lone figure still standing on top of the inferno. One of them mutters under his breath, "He's not supposed to still be alive."
Out on the field, the Germans make one last desperate push. A cluster of infantry, maybe a dozen, surge forward together through the smoke, trying to overwhelm the position with sheer numbers. Murphy pivots the gun, fires. The heavy rounds tear through the charging group with devastating effect. Snow erupts in violent sprays, bodies drop. The charge collapses just yards closer than the last. And then something changes. The German advance begins to slow, then stall. Then, incredibly, men start pulling back. Not a full retreat yet, but hesitation, uncertainty. Murphy sees it immediately. They're breaking. But he also knows something else. He's almost out of time. The flames beneath him are now roaring openly, heat blasting up around his legs. Inside the M10, ammunition begins cooking off in sharper, more dangerous bursts. Any second now, this thing is going to explode. Murphy fires one more controlled burst into the withdrawing enemy line. Then finally, he releases the trigger. For the first time in nearly an hour, the gun falls silent.
Smoke rolls low across the frozen ground. The German infantry, what's left of their assault force, are no longer advancing. Many are pulling back toward the tree line, dragging wounded, shouting urgent commands in clipped, panicked German. But Murphy doesn't relax. Not yet. Because beneath his boots, the burning M10 has reached its breaking point. Inside the hull, ammunition is cooking off in rapid, violent pops now, sharp metallic cracks that echo through the winter air. Flames roar up through the engine compartment, black smoke pouring around him in choking waves. He knows exactly what comes next. The tank destroyer is seconds from catastrophic detonation. Murphy finally releases the field phone, drops low, sliding down from the blazing vehicle. The moment his boots hit the snow, his legs nearly buckle. Nearly an hour of continuous fire, concussion blasts, and freezing wind have pushed his body to the absolute edge. But there's no time to collapse, because through the drifting smoke, he sees movement. The Germans aren't fully retreating. A final assault group, maybe 10 men, is still trying to probe forward along the right flank, using the artillery craters for cover. If they slip through now, they could still punch into the American line in the woods. Murphy's eyes harden. Not today. He grabs his M1 carbine from where it rests against the wreck and moves forward through the snow, alone again, but this time on foot. The cold air hits his lungs like knives. Behind him, the burning M10 suddenly erupts. A violent internal explosion blasts the turret compartment apart in a shower of flame and twisted metal. The shockwave punches Murphy forward a half step, but he keeps moving, boots crunching through the frozen crust. Ahead, the German squad spots him. For a split second, both sides freeze in mutual disbelief. One exhausted American, still coming toward them. Murphy raises the carbine and fires. Sharp, controlled shots crack through the cold air. The lead German drops instantly. Another dives for cover behind a churned mound of frozen earth. Murphy keeps advancing, because now, after everything, he's not just holding the line. He's taking it back. From the woods behind him, American soldiers begin to realize what's happening. Officers shout hurried orders. Riflemen scramble forward to support the impossible stand they've just witnessed. Murphy reaches the edge of the nearest artillery crater and drops to a knee, firing again. The remaining German soldiers finally break completely, retreating hard toward the distant trees. The counterattack is over. But Murphy isn't finished. He rises, breathing hard, and turns back toward the woods. "Let's go," he shouts, voice hoarse but commanding. And just like that, the American line surges forward.
Men who minutes ago were pinned and waiting to die now push through the snow with renewed fury. Rifles crack, machine guns chatter. The momentum has completely reversed. Within minutes, the Germans are in full withdrawal from the sector. The frozen field outside Holzwehr belonged to the Americans again. Murphy finally slows. His hands are shaking now, the adrenaline beginning to drain. Smoke drifts across the battlefield, mixing with the low winter fog. Around him lie the scattered remains of the assault that was supposed to break his company. Instead, it was stopped by one man. Hours later, as medics move among the wounded and officers piece together what happened, the numbers begin to emerge. Approximately 50 German infantry had been committed to the attack on Murphy's position. Most never made it back. For his actions that day near Holzwehr, France, Staff Sergeant Audie Murphy would receive the Medal of Honor, the United States military's highest award for valor. But in that frozen moment, standing alone on a burning tank destroyer, calling artillery on his own position, he wasn't thinking about medals. He was thinking about the men behind him and the line that could not break.